Hello everyone and welcome to the first Tempo Storm Wild Meta Snapshot breakdown for Madness at the Darkmoon Faire. The fair has arrived and we're shifting through the chaos in the opening days to find what decks will reign supreme. Early on, we can tell you that the previous cycle's top decks are still forces to be reckoned with, but if there's one thing that's changed with the new expansion, it's this. Everything old is new again. A few classic mid-tier decks like Odd Paladin, Secret Mage, and Reno are surging back thanks to some serious upgrades they received from Darkmoon Faire. Not only that, but Big Priest has returned with some upgrades of its own, and it has already become one of Wild's most popular decks again, though its competitive prowess is still up for debate. What else does the Darkmoon Faire have in store for Wild? Come join our Wild Meta experts as we break down the format's latest developments. As always, be sure to subscribe to the Tempo Strategy YouTube channel and ring the bell to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content. Now let's get started. Before we launch into the top tiers, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the return of Big Priest. After receiving some powerful new cards, Big Priest has already become one of the most popular ladder decks of the Darkmoon era. Palm Reading is a massive boon that provides a mana discount to Big Priest's expensive spells, allowing the deck to play cards like Shadow Essence and Mass Hysteria well ahead of schedule, and Blood of Cahoon is a strict upgrade to Yashiraj Rage Unbound that helps Big Priest set up a giant wall of taunts and stonewall the opponent. Put it all together and Big Priest is the strongest it's been since the nerf to Barnes, but does this mean that Big Priest is a top tier deck? Not exactly. Big Priest is still weak to combo decks like Reno Priest, Malygos Druid, and Quest Mage, since each of those decks can achieve their win conditions before Big Priest can take over the game. Big Priest also has to contend with the rise of its classic nemesis, Secret Mage, which also received some upgrades of its own from Darkmoon Faire. Our early estimate of Big Priest's power level is around tier 3, though this may change depending on how the meta evolves. Now let's dive into the top tier decks, starting with our reigning tier 1 champ, Reno Priest. Although it hasn't changed much from Darkmoon Faire, Reno Priest is still at the top of its game. If anything, Reno Priest is in an even better position than before, since fewer decks are targeting the deck with hate cards that turn off the Raza Anduin combo and the Highlander package. With the meta still unsettled, Reno Priest is an excellent choice for climbing ranks, since it demolishes untuned decks and has an edge against both aggro and control. Darkglare Warlock also joins Reno Priest in tier 1 as a solid pick in a chaotic meta. Like Reno Priest, Darkglare Warlock is unchanged after Darkmoon Faire, and its game plan is still quite strong. Inflict enough damage to yourself in the early turns to set up a big swing turn with Giants, Broom, and Lotheb, and knock the opponent out with a 1-2 punch. Darkglare's ability to lock opponents out of the game makes it especially effective against slow and undertuned decks, which are flooding the meta right now. Darkglare Warlock may have a steep learning curve, but it's the choice of top legend grinders for a reason. Don't let this deck fall off your radar. Aggro Druid is another deck that levels up to tier 1, and except for the occasional addition of Safety Inspector, it's another deck that's mostly unchanged from the Scholomance era. With the fastest early board development in the game and its surprising late game staying power with Embiggen and Voracious Reader, Aggro Druid sets the standard for aggressive decks in the new Darkmoon meta. Again, the name of the game when climbing in the early meta is exploiting slow and undertuned decks, and Aggro Druid is perhaps the most effective deck in the game at dominating its opponents before they gain a foothold. Odd Paladin rounds up this snapshot's tier 1, and unlike the rest of tier 1, this deck has received quite a few upgrades from the new expansion. Carnival Barker and Lothraxian the Redeemed both give Paladin even more ways to buff the recruits it gets from its upgraded hero power, giving the deck even more staying power, especially when combined with the tempo buffs it received from Scholomance. Perhaps the strongest update in Odd Paladin is the new Paladin secret Oh My Yogg, which usually acts as a 1-mana counterspell against opponents who rely on resolving specific key spells. Like the rest of tier 1, Odd Paladin is already well tuned and well positioned to gain ranks in the chaos of an early meta. Our tier 2 is also a fair mix of decks that received upgrades from Darkmoon Faire, along with decks that are mostly unchanged. Of the updated decks, Secret Mage has gained the most traction thanks to cards like Sage, Darkmoon Seer, Occult Conjurer, and Rigged Fair Game. Thanks to this spike in draw power and board development, Secret Mage is able to better compete with top tier decks, and it's still able to naturally give Big Priest a run for its money. Reno is another tier 2 deck that's seeing some changes, but in this case, Reno advantage is how well the previously tuned list were able to cope with the tier 1 metagame with its powerful Highlander and Demon packages, not to mention its Finley Wizard package designed to handle Reno Priest. What about the new cards from Darkmoon Faire? Deck of Chaos is fitting in well, giving Reno a tool similar to Luna's Pocket Galaxy in setting up high-tempo swing turns. As for Ticketus, unfortunately Ticketus doesn't mesh well with the Voidcaller Demon package, so for right now it's probably better on the sidelines. For now, sticking with a tried and true decklist is your best bet for success in an uncertain meta. So if the top decks aren't going going anywhere, what's going to be the best way to attack them? Our eyes are on Galakrond Warrior as a potential meta breaker. Not only has Galakrond Warrior got a sweet upgrade from the new set in the form of Ringmaster Watley, but it also has a strong game plan in a wide variety of matchups. Against the top tier decks, Warrior can stifle Reno Priest with bombs, overcome Dark Glare with Lord Barov into Animated Broomstick, and it can manage the board against Aggro Druid with Invoke cards and Scion of Ruin. Even against slow decks like Big Priest, it's a little rougher, but you can still overwhelm them in the early game, then fall back on bombs to finish the job if big taunts push the game out of reach. With so many angles of attack, Galakrond Warrior is an excellent choice for tackling the latter as the Darkmoon meta matures. In conclusion, the madness at the Darkmoon Faire is finally here, and while there are quite a few new updates and changes to sort out, the existing pillars of the format aren't going anywhere anytime soon. The meta is still developing, and we're keeping an eye on how things shift in response to the return of decks like Big Priest and Secret Mage. Be sure to check out the full meta report on our website for all the details, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to stay up to date with our Wild Hearthstone content. Thanks for watching!